How's it going, everybody? So we're here today with another episode of the FCMG Producers Log live stream. This is a chat that we do on a weekly basis. If you've joined us before, then you know. If you're one of the students from UXL, then you definitely know. We've been doing this for about 9 weeks now. So we've been making this happen on a regular basis, just about. For the past like 9-10 weeks. Missed 1 week in there from allergies, but hey, that happens. Let's see if I can pull up the student questions here. As you know, UXL obviously has been sponsoring these live streams, and they have this sweet function on their website where if you're one of their students, then you can pre-register for these live streams, and you can also ask questions beforehand. So hey everyone on Instagram, how's it going? If you'd like to ask some questions, if you're on Instagram, definitely go over to UXL on Facebook or YouTube and join the conversation there. I'll see your chats actually pop up in the side screen right up here. We're also streaming on Twitch. You can go to FCMG_producers log or go to my page, Full Coverage Media Group, to see there and join in the chat as well. So yeah, I'm gonna scroll back and find our questions. Where we were last week, and we're going to get this one started. Our topic today is going to be building a photography brand. So actually how to, go from a single freelancer that's sort of doing things like that to building a presence online, creating an image, and, choosing what kind of approach you want to take to actually, attracting clients and doing work. If you want to take that general approach and just do anything photography related, or if you would rather go more specific and be like, okay, I'm going to be this type of photographer. So we'll discuss the kind of pros and cons of that stuff. We'll discuss some options, all sorts of things like that. And we'll be fielding questions from you, actually, as we go along. We already have some questions from students here, from UXL students who have pre-registered in their course and sent us questions in a little bit early. I've got an eyelash in my eye somewhere in here. There it is. I think I got it. That's great. Okay, solid start to the morning. So we always get a ton of questions, and I have to kind of scroll back and figure out where we were last time. So let's see here. We're gonna look back and see where we were. Okay, I remember that question. Jay Baden had asked, and we talked about this in the last episode. If you go back and watch those episodes, either on YouTube or Facebook for UXL, Jay Baden asked, do you have any tips for photographing kids who are very uncooperative? And we kind of talked about that. That was a fun question. Let's see. I've been working with someone else for years. Light ratios. Okay. I think that might be where we stopped. Cameras are an option for exploring conversation. You know what? I think we were around here. Okay, cool. My studio. My Instagram account. My camera is option. Okay. All right, we're finding our spot again. So let's see. Yeah, I think last week the last question that we ended up with was, I'm having some is by Josiah M. Was I have been having some cash flow issues for my photography business. Are there companies that will pay me the invoice for a percentage before the client pays? I know this type of service exists for other types of businesses. So we chatted about that a little bit, and it's this interesting thing that I actually didn't even know about. There are some companies out there that if you're sending invoices to clients and those clients are, being given like a 30 or a 60 or even a 90-day option within to pay, or if they're asking for extensions or whatever, then you can send your invoices to a company that will actually pay you for that invoice up front, and then they will collect on the client on your behalf. I'm not a huge fan of like farming out those sort of responsibilities to other people. I like to be the face of, hey, I am the person that you get the services from, and I'm also the person that collects the bill, basically. But I do that as gently and personably as I possibly can. I offered a service, and everyone that I've done work with so far has been very happy about paying that check. So that's kind of the what you're looking for. But if that's not happening, if you're in a situation where you're invoicing clients and you have to keep making those extensions, then maybe an option like that could be good. So we sort of talked about that question a little bit in last week's episode. That eyelash is making a comeback. So we talked about that a little bit in last week's episode, and you can find more of that conversation in our last episode. So we're gonna move on here to a question from Malia Photos. I feel like your name is Malia, and your last name might not actually be Photos, but that's kind of cool. I've been working for someone else for a few years, and they own the copyright for all my photos. Can I still use these images in my portfolio? You would have to check with them. So there have been times where I've worked for real estate agencies or just companies in general that weren't comfortable with allowing their photos to be used or publicized or posted online in any way other than the ways in which they had full control. So that made it so that I literally couldn't use any of the images from that portfolio, but I could, say, hey, I worked on this project and point people to the actual place where that company has it posted online. So while I wasn't allowed to post them as my own and, anything like that, I was allowed to link clients or prospective clients to those listings and to those web properties where those things can be found. So it's definitely important to hang on to where those materials that you've worked on actually live. When I work for PBS, they post everything on WLVT.org. So you can look through a bunch of the the news articles there, and those will be things that I've worked on. It can be a great way to archive your stuff without actually having to host it yourself or having to organize, your own posts or anything like that. But you can also do something like if you have your own website, you can organize those things into a blog and link back to the place where those things are posted. And your employer in that case might actually really like that because you're helping them with web SEO at the same time. By backlinking to their website, you're actually going to be helping them rank higher on Google. So it's kind of a win-win situation if you ask me, but you never know. So always check with your employer before you link to projects or use those projects in any real way. I'm always comfortable linking to a project, especially if they have it posted publicly online. Then it's in, Ashley mentions in the comments, she goes, yes, backlinks. Absolutely. Backlinks are a huge, huge thing. So, really realistically, I would hope that your employer would go, heck yeah, sure, go for it. Put all the backlinks up. Cool. Okay, so today's going to be kind of interesting. We have the UXL newsletter is going to be coming out relatively soon, and whenever the newsletter comes out, we always get an influx of a bunch of people watching these streams, and we get a whole bunch of comments and questions and stuff in those chats. So if you have any questions for us today, definitely add those in the chats now if you have them. We'll be getting to those all throughout today's live stream as usual, but we have a list of about 10-15 questions from students that we're going to get to beforehand. So if you get your questions in early in the chats, then we'll be able to get to those. And if you're watching on Instagram, join us over on Facebook or YouTube. That's going to be for UXL, and you'll be able to join in those chats as well. The Eliza Kolvek, no worries. The newsletter hasn't gone out yet, I don't think, and I was, I'm always a little bit late hopping on. So Eliza Kolvek, the backlinks that we were talking about was if an employer owns all the copyright to the material that you're working on. Like say you're working for a company, like I worked for a company, Marathon Photo. They do photos of marathons. But they post all their stuff in archives online, but they had this policy where I wasn't allowed to share those on my own social media or anything like that. It would kind of dilute their brand image. So instead of me posting those online, a really good way of showing off those materials as something that you've actually worked on, or materials of that you were the photographer or whatever, is writing blog posts on your website or on your Facebook page and linking to those things. By linking to those things, your employer is actually getting a backlink to their website, which helps increase their visibility on Google. And that's a win-win in everyone's situation. So if they're a little bit reticent about you, sharing those things on social media, maybe suggest that as an option instead. Hey, let's backlink your website in a blog post and maybe share the photo there. Maybe they'll let you do that. But, it really depends on what your employer says. So if you don't own the copyright for the images that you worked on, definitely check with them before you share them online or anywhere public, of course. But, if all else fails, keep those links handy so that you can send prospective employers, like people who are looking for material from you, example material and whatnot. Definitely keep those links around so that you can send those links to them and say, hey, this is something that I worked on. Go check it out. That's the way that I've done it before. I worked for a couple real estate agencies, and that really helped out. So sure, glad to help catch you up. We're just going through some questions here. So that was a question by Malaya Photos, and the next one is going to be Saya Ahmed, which I feel like I might have butchered that name, and I apologize, but we're doing our best here, powering through. Okay, so Saya says, can you explain the term light ratios? Can you explain what the term light ratios refers to? Thank you. So light ratios are the ratio of, your key light. So this is my key light up here. You can see it's real soft. To my fill light, which is my backlight here. Sometimes people have 3 lights around them. They'll have like a hair light behind them and a fill light kind of over on this side, and then their key light coming in as the main source of light. So light ratios refers to balancing between those lights in different sort of numerical things. So like you can do like a 1:2 light ratio. So your key light is twice as strong as your fill light. That gives you a nice contrast ratio. So some people are looking for a more high key environment. So maybe you go 3-2-1 with your 3 light setup. So your key light is 3 times as powerful as your hair light, which is just a nice little shine on the back of the head. But then your fill light is only twice as powerful as the hair light as well. So it's 2/3 as powerful as your key light. So there's a closer ratio between your key light and your fill light then, which means that you're going to have a little bit more of an even exposure. So if I were to do something like lower my key light, then I'm going to go from a 2-to-1 ratio with my key light being twice as powerful as my fill light back here, my little hair light. It's kind of funny because I don't have hair. Get it? So it'll go from a 2-to-1 ratio. We can go down to like a 1-to-1 ratio. So let's, I'm going to dim this down a little bit, and you can sort of see as we get more even, it's going to be like a 1-to-1 ratio on my face. So this sort of shiny part is just as bright as this shiny part. It's a little hard to show this on Instagram because the exposure isn't quite as even, but because this light is more diffused, it's showing up in a wider area. But they're at about the same strength right now, and I can even go so that this key light is lower, just about lower than my hair light. So my exposure's gone down a whole bunch, but now you can see it's about a 3-to-2 ratio. So this one's just a little bit more powerful than my key light. And it makes a huge difference having those ratios and being aware of like, okay, I could do like a 5-to-1 ratio where like my key light is 5 times as strong as my fill light, but I'm going to put that key light, or you know what? My hair light is going to be 5 times as powerful as my key light. So I'm just going to have this soft little glow on someone's face, and they're going to have this blast of just, hair light, and you're going to see the shape of the person. It could be, for a horror film or something like that. But, there could be all kinds of reasons why you use a setup like that. But using ratios like that and, really measuring your distances from your lights to your subject and being aware of the inverse square law, doing things like this can really help you fine-tune setups and get to a point where you walk into a set and you go, okay, I'm going to do a 2-to-1 key and fill light setup. I need those lights to be 10 feet away from the subject so that I can get the proper exposure. And then you literally have your settings already in your camera. Like, that if you put the lights that far away from someone and you set them to, 50% or whatever, 100% on one and 50% on the other, then you're going to have the same exposure on that person that you had in your last, their last time you shot something like that. So this can be really, really helpful, especially in videography, I find, or if you're doing like series of images. So you want to have images that are the same sort of brightness, and they look all very similar. You're not having your lighting conditions change and all that stuff. So that can be a really good way to like dial in those settings like real specifically. Liz has a question here. Are there a lot of different types of setups, or are there just a few standard ones that everyone uses? I mean, lighting setups, that is. So Liz, there are some standard ones that everyone kind of tends to use. I see a lot of 3-point lighting. So that's a key light in front of someone, just like this, a fill light back here, and then like a little hair light in the back to help them sort of stand off the background. I'm not using the hair light really. I'm using my fill light. I kind of moved that much further to the background as opposed to just 1/3 of the way around me. So that sort of acts as my fill light as well. And that's sort of a 2-light setup. It's just like a quick and dirty method for a 3-light basically. Sort of has the same effect, but it's just a lot easier to set up. But there is a video that we actually did on lighting setups, and I'm not sure if you were actually in on that one. I forget which episode it was, but I can look back really quick. Okay, upgrading gear. Let's see. Let's go here. Okay, new styles of photography. There's a photographer. Okay, now I have to go way down to get my other streams. Yeah, so there was one. All right, here we go. It was the May 18th stream. I believe that we did. It was locations and then lighting, and we went through a whole bunch of different setups like Rembrandt lighting, split lighting, which is when the lights are right along the side. Rembrandt is when the subject has on the dark side of their face just a little triangle of light, and I sort of have that, but my light is super diffused, so it's not going to show up in the same sort of way. Like you need a sharper light there. Yeah, okay, the portrait photography setup, that's one of them. There was one I think I did immediately before that one that had that had an actual lighting setup, like where I was doing the I did like badger lighting, which is an interesting light setup. There's clamshell, flat, butterfly, and then you can also talk about hard keys and hard kickers, which is when you have no diffusion on the light and you're getting that very sharp light. This is actually a hard fill back here. You can see the shadow is really sharp, and then when I move my hand over here, look how diffused that shadow is in comparison. So using hard lights versus diffused lights can make a big difference too, and they can affect that ratio in a little bit of a way. So like you can have a light that is set stronger, but if you diffuse it more, it's gonna look less strong. Sorry, choked on my words there. It's gonna look less strong. So it's a science. When you're using different diffusion and things like that, like they'll dim your light by a certain percentage because you're having to pass that light through a material of some sort. Unless it's like a reflector, it's not really gonna improve your light unless it's sharpening the beam. So if you have something like a Fresnel lens on your light, then you can set that to that 2-to-1 ratio, but that lens on the front might make it more of like a 5-to-1 ratio instead of a 2-to-1. Liz, I'll have to take a look at my notes as well for a refresher. That's great. That's crazy. It just blows my mind that people are, joining in these courses on a regular basis and really, making this like a community. It warms my heart. I can't say it enough. So, while we have people here, I might as well do my little intro here. So, UXL has been kind enough to sponsor these producers logs, and every episode I try and do a little bit of a read for them. You know what? I'll even put up their logo right here. So This video is sponsored by UXL Career and Learning Network. Are you interested in learning a new skill? UXL is a leading provider in online training. They host courses from top-rated instructors across the globe. Find courses on just about any subject and join a community of over 500,000 passionate learners. Visit UXL.com and register today. And speaking of UXL, I'm actually working on a course with them right now. So I've been answering a whole bunch of questions that they have from students. They put out an interesting like an article and basically asked for questions, and I've been slowly going through those questions and answering them to the best of my abilities. Some are about my experiences personally, like, you know, when you went to like to do a travel trip and whatnot. What equipment did you bring with you? What do you wish you had with you? Things like that. So we're sort of building a course on experiential photography, which I think is really cool. And then I'm going to help do some voiceover and stuff for a lesson that they already have built. So we'll be sort of teaming up on some content in the near future, and I'm really excited to help deliver that to you guys, to everyone in the audience. There's also just one more episode of the How to Be a Better Photographer series that we're working on right now. We're in episode 9. We're getting towards the end. And after that episode, which is next week, next Monday, we're going to be taking a little bit of a break to go through our analytics, look at, past episodes, see what people really enjoyed, get some feedback from you guys, from everyone in the audience, and also to build some content from the content that we've produced already. So like highlight videos that are going to go out on the Full Coverage Media Group YouTube channel. I would love it if you went there and subscribed, by the way. I've been doing some more gear reviews there, and I've been posting stuff every Friday. So if you go there, you're going to see some new gear review content, and I've got some sweet stuff that I've been looking at. Like these things. Where are they? Where did I put them? These two. So I'm going to be doing like a shootout with these, and I can hopefully get my hands on the DJI Osmo Pocket as well. But this is the Feiyu Pocket by Feiyu Tech. They have some great gimbals and awesome stuff that I've really enjoyed using. And then this is the Snappa V-Mate, which I've never heard of before today. Like, I've never heard of that company, but this thing so far has me really, really impressed. Like, this was cool, but I think we might have a bit of a battle here. You know, it's gonna be fun. We're gonna do some YouTube stuff like that. Do some videos that actually show me unboxing things and then actually using them, learning how to use them, and you get to see the whole process. But I cut it up so it's actually a little bit more digestible than just a, big long 3-hour live stream like this. So I would love to have you there over at the Full Coverage Media Group YouTube channel. It would be super, super helpful. And keep an eye out for more content in the future. So next week, we're going to be taking a little break after that. But we got tons of stuff coming up. Let's see. Your channel is FC Media Group. I don't think that necessarily works. Let's see. If you search Full Coverage Media Group in YouTube, you definitely find it. But I don't have enough subscribers yet to get that. Let's see. I'm going to try and search it here. Full Coverage Media Group. I could have made that, a longer name. Jeez, what am I doing? So basically, here, I'll share a link to the channel. Yeah, okay. It says it in the bottom of the channel. That's the one that I'm going to be going with, and I added that in so that when I can finally make that, I know I'm going to be taking that as the name. Since nothing comes up, I know that no one else has it, so hopefully we're just going to get that in there. But right now I have that big, long, ugly, UCWLO2LG. I sent the link in the chats. If you go there and subscribe, I will definitely subscribe back to you, so your channels as well will get another subscriber. But there's going to be some more content coming out soon. I've got those travel vlogs up there. I've got some podcasts where I talk to creative producers. And yeah, should be a lot of fun. Yeah, Liz, it's a heck of a link. It's hard to put that in the bottom of a live stream. Yeah. Also, you can see past live streams that I've done, some game nights that I've done, all kinds of things. But the FCMG gear reviews is getting some new content. I just put up a Nexalumi LED light strip video. and you actually get to see a bit of my studio in that. So you can kind of check out the studio here by checking out those videos. So yeah, we'll move on from that, from the shameless plugs. Let's see. We were on some questions. We just talked through Saya Ahmed's question about light ratios. I'm gonna get a sip of water, actually a sip of coffee and a sip of water too. Gotta stay hydrated, folks. Don't forget to drink water. Very important. Okay, cool. Also, I'm really glad the YouTube comments are finally showing up over here. I've been trying to get that working for a while now, and it finally is. I'm curious if anyone comments on Facebook or Twitch over at FCMG_producers log, if they'll show up as well. Okay, so Jahir Prakash says, my camera has an option for exposure compensation and flash compensation. Are these not the same thing? So I'm not too terribly familiar with flash compensation, but I know that exposure compensation is definitely something different. So flash compensation is when your flash is going to go off and you're going to want to, I think, blend it a little bit more. Like it's going to make it less high contrast, basically. It's like the fill flash option. Flash compensation definition. Let's look this up. What is flash exposure compensation? Well, okay, now they're putting both into there. So we have some definitions. Okay, so let's look at exposure compensation on Wikipedia here. Exposure compensation is a technique for adjusting the exposure indicated by a photographic exposure meter. So if you set your camera settings and you want those settings, but it's still a little bit too hot, you can go into your camera and select that exposure compensation and adjust your exposure value, EV, left or right. I think those typically give you, hey, Ashley just did a comment from Twitch, and damn, it didn't show up on the thing. We're trying every day. I think it might be, if it's FCMG stay, maybe that comment will work because we're being hosted. I don't know. It's tied through Streamlabs, so I'm still learning. Anyway, okay, so exposure compensation, you can adjust your exposure value left or right if you want those settings. But if I'm not mistaken, it's not going to change the fact that, like, if a part of your image is pure white, if it's blown out, it's not going to bring that back. So adjusting your actual settings, like your shutter speed or your aperture, I just totally forgot that word for a second. Adjusting your shutter speed, your aperture, your ISO, those will help fix that problem. Whereas adjusting your exposure compensation is just going to, take the exposure that you have right now and either move it all the way down or move it up. It's going to do it globally to the entire image. And if you have something that's perfectly white or perfectly black, it's not going to expose those higher. I don't think it's going to adjust your settings to compensate for that. On some cameras, like camcorders and whatnot, it might actually adjust the gain on the camera, which is a little bit different. But if you're going down, like, there should be a 0 point to that. So if you go down, you can't really go negative gain. It's just 0 gain. Gain is only additive, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, exposure compensation and flash compensation, I think, are different things specifically. So Olympus here has a flash compensation article. Let's see what they say. No flash. Flash without flash compensation. Flash with flash compensation of plus. Okay, all right. So flash compensation. Flash compensation seems to be a longer exposure taken underneath the image that helps raise the shadows of the flash. So your flash is going to go off and it's going to expose for a certain part of the image. But in order to get a more natural looking image, your camera is also going to take a little bit more of a little bit more of the image. It says flash with flash compensation of plus 0.7 EV. So that seems to be just about the same sort of thing. But when I'm looking at these images, it doesn't bring up the, you know what? I'm actually going to bring this up on this screen. I keep forgetting that I can show you guys this stuff. Jeez. What kind of presenter am I? Good holy beans. Here we go. In screen. Okay. So, by the way, if you're on Instagram, you can't see what we're doing right now because you would have to be on either Facebook or YouTube, Full Coverage Media Group, or UXL to be able to watch this. So go join us over there. Okay, so flash compensation. You can see up on the screen over here. Yeah. Sometimes you need to adjust the brightness of the main subject without changing the brightness of the background. That's the big thing here with flash compensation. The flash compensation function lets you do this by increasing or decreasing the flash output in the same way as exposure compensation for normal shooting. You can change the settings on the camera or on the flash itself. Generally, a positive value is applied for brighter subjects and a negative value is applied for darker subjects. So, yeah, if you see what I'm sort of looking at here, I'm going to try and zoom in on these a little bit. So here's no flash on this side, obviously. So your background is the same image. So this is if you're taking your image 1/60th of a second, F or ISO 100, you know, F obviously like F2, something like that, right? So you take your image and your subject is dark. So you're like, okay, I need to add a flash in there. Let's do it. So you add that flash and you're like, still not great. So you're going to add, like, my subject is still too dark. So I'm going to add plus 0.7 exposure value. So that means the flash itself will flash brighter. So the background of the image, the things that are far off in the distance aren't going to get hit by that flash. It's just going to be your subject that's up kind of close. So it's literally just higher power on your flash. There are some flashes that, like, you know, those on-camera flashes, the ones that you put on top of your camera, that you'll be able to manually change your exposure, but those also have flash compensation settings too. So if you're shooting TTL or one of those like automatic modes, you can adjust your flash compensation that way as well. You ready? Let's head back to our single shot here. Cool. Okay. Yeah, flash compensation is reducing the power of flash. Exposure compensation is more about the image sensor. Yes, you're changing the it's like after you take an image into Photoshop, if you're in Camera Raw and you have that exposure value, I think that's just about the same thing. Righty. So let me get my my windows back up here. I had a good setup going. Cool. Okay. So yeah, Eliza, I think we beat that subject to death a little bit. Sweet. I'm excited. I've been wanting to learn more about that, actually. I never really use those settings on cameras. I always try and just dial it in camera. So it's cool to know that that's the way that you do it with flashes. And I think that's going to be a lot more useful than exposure compensation. Flash compensation seems to be a little bit less sensor intensive. So I feel like you're going to get less gain, less issues with highlights and shadows and pure darks and stuff like that. Alrighty. Gotta stay hydrated, especially when you talk as much as I do. Okay, cool. So here we go. Last question was from Jahir Prakash. That was about exposure and flash compensation. I think that was a really cool conversation we just had. I definitely needed to know that information. So cool. The next question is from Anel Brown. Anel asks, do you know some methods to grow my Instagram account? I want to use Instagram to promote my photography and photo editing services. Okay, so back maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I used to use this method where I would download an app that would allow me to follow and unfollow people, you know, based on the maximum what is that called? Maximum actions that you can take on Instagram. So I would do like follow 200 people per per hour or something like that, and go to pages that were very similar to mine and follow as many people that followed their accounts as I possibly could. A lot of people would follow me back. And through these methods, like I wasn't paying for subscribers or anything like that, or paying for viewers or likes or nothing like that. This was not paid in any way. The app itself, it did have like deeper analytics features that you could pay for, but the features that I was really using and like leveraging here were not paid features. Like you could get them in the free version of the app. So I used those for a long time, and then eventually I found out that Instagram will shadow ban you if you use third-party apps to go through and like capitalize on the system, you know, like sort of break the system in a way. Because like you could schedule like, okay, I'm gonna unfollow 200 people at once and just go boop 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 and select 200 people and then done. You're good to go. It would just make it way too easy to do all that stuff. So be careful of using third-party apps to grow your Instagram following, unless you're just looking for viewership. If you're not looking for like a verification or like a check mark on Instagram, it's not that much of a deal. Like, but it can dilute your message if you have a bunch of like just random followers. My posts now, like I have about 12,000 followers and 10,000 followers on two different accounts, but my posts now get probably 50 likes. They used to get close to 1,000. And it was just a situation where like, only use apps to help you with content. Ashley says, follow and like things manually. Definitely like engage with the app itself and use it like a real person. Like go through and follow people that, you know, maybe you want to work with. That's a great way to get in touch with people. Like start following them, like a bunch of their content, comment on their photos, and just use it like a genuine person, not as like a business at first. Creating that connection without the pretense of, hey, I would love you to hire me is like my best piece of advice for social media. Like do things with the, you know, from the perspective of like, wow, I'm really interested in photography, and you take photos and you post photos and you put out awesome stuff. So I'm going to follow you because I really like you. And, you know, comment on them and all this stuff, and maybe eventually get in touch with them and be like, hey, so I really like your stuff. I would love to work with you at some point. Is there anything that you know, maybe you need help with editing? I would love to help you with editing. Or if it's an actual company that you like, follow their posts and be like, hey, you know, I love your brand, blah, blah, blah. Like I love to use social media as me, like as a person who's going to show up to these other accounts, talk to them as a person, and say, you know, like only really engage with things that I'm actually interested in. Just using those things honestly can be a great way to grow those accounts just in and of itself, or at least to make the activity that you put into it more useful and more, you know, more genuine. At least you'll have, you know, if you have a smaller group there, at least they'll be more active. They'll be more likely to actually engage with your posts, to share your content, and maybe subscribe or you know, become a patron or whatever it is that you're actually, your goal is, or, you know, buy services from you if that's what you're trying to do. So there's something to avoid. There's something to try out. But if you're trying to just grow your account, then, you know, using some of those methods to just follow as many people that follow similar pages as yours. There's methods like that are out there, but those can get your accounts flagged. So definitely be careful if you're trying to do like, you know, marketing on there or things that require organic reach, because just getting the most amount of followers is going to help kill your organic reach. It's not going to be good for that. So be careful of those things. Keep using it as a real person. Post some genuine stuff and let people into your life. You know, document the process as opposed to making content for Instagram necessarily. I love Instagram feeds that are all about like there's one cinematography database. This guy is he's building a VR studio. So there's green screens everywhere. He's working in virtual reality and in the real world. Like it's really, really interesting. And he's literally putting up posts being like, okay, so today I did this, and this is the new thing that I figured out, and whatnot. Like, documenting that process gives me something to follow constantly, as opposed to just being like, oh, here's a nice photo and a catchy Instagram post. Having that story to carry through can be really helpful as well. Cool. Okay, so that was Anel's question. We're going to move on to Niklas's question in a second. Get some water in me. Yeah, Ashley's got some great comments in here. So Ashley says, make sure it's a schedule you can stick to. So sticking to a schedule and putting content out on a regular basis is fantastic for your reach and for your engagement. It's a really good way to grow those things. That's definitely better advice than I was giving. Insta is great for behind the scenes or the reality behind something you've produced and posted elsewhere. I like to use Instagram as like a bit of a journal. So I post in there and be like, hey, this week I was doing a lot of this, or, you know, I've been working on X, Y, and Z. Documenting that process can be a great way to engage your audience on Instagram. Cool. Okay, so Niklas's question. This is Niklas Z. What kind of lighting kit can I use for a home-based photography studio? So if you're doing indoors photography or video, you can kind of get away with less powerful lights. So my GVM 520S, you know, Master Series lights that we were talking about recently, those things are fantastic because they're just barely powerful enough to make an effect outside. Not quite powerful enough if I need to have a whole lot of space or like shoot a really wide shot. But if I'm doing like close-ups and whatnot, then I can move those lights in close enough that they actually have an effect. But in the studio is where they really shine, where I can control my lighting like this. You can get away with having less powerful lights just because you can control your lighting situation a lot more. So even if you have a room that has great natural light, if that's where your studio is, maybe get some blackout curtains just so that you have the option to control that light if necessary. I've got a whole bunch of control of the lights in here. We have dimmers on a whole bunch of things. I have, like remotes. I can turn this off. I can turn it back on. I can even affect the colored lights that are up there. I think my remote's over there. But I can change the colors. I can do all kinds of things. And that really gives me a lot of versatility in my studio. So having installed lights like this, the strip lighting above me, or having, colored lighting, that's all great. But just having a good set of like LED panels is what I would suggest for indoor studio lighting. You can get those really, really inexpensively. For instance, let's look at the GVM lights. I really like GVM. Hop on to Amazon here. I can give you a link. So we'll see what their new stuff is looking like. So GVM. So the 520S series that I have, the Master Series, which I really like because they have really, really high color rendering index. That CRI is 97 plus. So that's high color rendering index. It's $333, but you can save $25 on that by applying a coupon. For 2 lights, actually, I paid about $350 for one of them, and they're totally worth it. Like I am not upset that they're giving deals like this. I'm really happy that they have these lights, and honestly, the price that I got them at was still a really dang good price. So here's the link to that. I'm gonna pop that in the chat. This is a set of 2 520 LS lights. They're LED panels, and they're just fantastic. I really, really like those. The other ones that I use, like the one that I actually have right up there, is a Godox 60 SL60 watt. So let's look this one up. SL60W. These guys are selling for about $134 a piece. So you can get 2 of them for around that price. And these have a Bowens mount on the front. The Bowens mount is a classic like photography mount. A lot of studio strobes have that type of mount. It allows you to put on soft boxes and grids and honeycombs and snoots and gobos and like everything under the sun. That Bowens mount is fairly universal. Like, it's been around for a long, long time. So it's a good mount to use if you want to add stuff onto your lights. those LED panels, they don't really have the best mounting situation because it's like all proprietary. But they do come with a diffusion panel, an extra diffusion panel, so you can add another layer of diffusion, and also barn doors. So you can do all kinds of things with those lights. They're fantastic, and I love them. I use them on a lot of my shoots that I go out on. They're super versatile just because you can go basically between a softbox look and hard point light really easily just by sliding out a little sheet of plastic, basically. But these Godox lights, I absolutely love for studio stuff. I'm gonna grab the they have $134. You get a what is that called? It's just the dome where you get illumination off that. Let's grab a link. Okay, so here's the link to the Godox SL60W. These are lights that I would suggest for the studio. So if you check those out, those are going to be lights that have a lot of mounting options. You can add on a whole bunch of things. I just got a Neewer long strip light. It's 12 by 36. So you get 1 foot wide light that's about 3 feet, or 1 foot tall and 3 feet wide, how I have it set up right now. So you get this really nice kind of wraparound light, but it's not going to hit my background too much. You can kind of see as soon as I start raising my hands and whatnot into the background, the light falls off just above my head and just below my chest. So I'm not having to deal with a whole bunch of extra light spill in the background. You can see when I flip it on and off too, that the background stays relatively stable. It's just this this red thing next to me right here that you can see lighting up. Cool. Okay, so those are definitely some lights that I would suggest. And then when it comes to stands, my favorites for a studio, they're very heavy and cumbersome to bring anywhere else, but getting a C stand is massive. But you can get some really good deals out there. Like the ones that I've been using are these Neewer. What are they? Are they the Neewer Pro? I think they are. Yeah, last purchased October 24th of 2019. Cool. Okay, so these are actually on sale right now. They're $140 a piece. I'll get a text link. There we are. Okay, so these are the Neewer C stands. And like I said, Neewer is one of those brands that like they're kind of hit and miss sometimes. Like sometimes they have some equipment that's just like total garbage. You know, you get it and you're just like, okay, this doesn't work for me. Or it breaks. But sometimes you find pieces of equipment that they have that are just like, they have no business being as good as they are. And like the softbox that I have from them, fantastic, super cheap. It was like $30. The stands that I have, the C stands, they are $140. So yeah, they are, a decent chunk of money, but, they've been super solid for me. They've done the job without, question. And they have good, big locking teeth. And that's something that's huge. There's C stands that I've used that don't have teeth. They have flat surfaces. So you tighten them down and your light just goes and like slowly sinks on you. And you're like, stop. Like, it's so frustrating working with a light like that. So having good teeth on them, having good lockdowns, these things are super tall. They're 10 feet tall, max height. And then if you add the arm on top of that, that's another 4 feet of distance that you can get. So you can get up to like 14 feet with this single stand. It's 10 foot tall stand in 3 sections. So it goes as low as about 4 feet. You can extend that way up and you can, set that light out there. And it comes with another knuckle too. So you get 2 knuckles, extension arm, and the stand itself for about $140. And that's the best deal on C stands that I've ever seen. Made of pure metal, it says. Pure metal, get it? Cool. Yeah, so that's some studio equipment I would definitely stand behind. It's actually what I use. Like literally, it's the light that is on me right now. I love these things. I've got this light only at 65% right now, and it's still super bright. So Here we go. That was Niklas's question. Thank you for the questions, everyone who's been adding these questions into the chats. I really appreciate it. We got a bunch more to go through. I'm going to try and get through all of these, just because we've been falling behind on questions, and I want to make sure that I get through all of them, at least eventually. And we only have one more episode in this series. So next week, next Monday, the same time, we're going to be back here answering these questions, and then we're going to be taking a break for a while. So we're going to go through our analytics. We're going to make highlight videos. We're going to figure out ways to upgrade this content and deliver it to you even better, get more people involved, and maybe do some podcasts and all kinds of things like that. So it's definitely worth checking out, definitely worth stopping back next week and joining us again. But even when we take that break, you can expect more content soon. These live streams come up every now and then, so I'm going to make sure that they come back real soon. So our next question is from Kinsey Bug. Any tips for a photographer who is nervous going to their first shoot? Yeah. Thanks to the chats and the Instagram. I'm seeing a whole bunch of comments here. Wow. Be right back. Time to pray. Good luck, bro. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining in the chats. If you want to have your chats featured on the actual live streams, by the way, join us on UXL's either Facebook page or YouTube channel, and we're up there right now. So definitely send us some questions in the chats there, and we'll be sure to answer your questions there. Thank you for joining in on Instagram. Appreciate it. So Kinsey asks, any tips for a photographer who is nervous going to their first shoot? Over prepare. Make sure you got more batteries than you need. Make sure you have, your memory cards are all ready to go. Everything's wiped. You got plenty of space, because you're probably going to shoot a lot more than you think you will. Pack some extra equipment, but make sure that it's all stuff that you know how to use and you know how to make it work in whatever situation you're going to be in. So, just make sure everything's clean, prepped, ready to go. Make sure your gear isn't going to be the issue for you. I always like to say that I'm trying to, catch up to my gear. So like, I know my gear and I know what my gear can do, but it's me who has to figure out how to make the shot better and all that stuff. So like, the gear's not going to fail. It's going to be me not getting the best shot or something like that. I can't blame my gear for, me not getting a gig done. Like, it's always, I have to be prepared. I have to make sure that my gear is all ready to go. I'm packed. I'm ready. I'm going to be on time. I've got a plan for how to get there, how to get back, all kinds of things like that. I know the details of where this shoot is, when, and who I'm going to be meeting there. That's always important. Make sure that you're safe going to that gig and coming from that gig. That's paramount. If this is your first gig, definitely make sure that you're comfortable with the situation, everything is legit, and you're gonna have a good time. Also, bring snacks. Something that I've realized as a photographer is you don't always know when you're gonna get out. So the worst case scenario is you getting all hangry because you haven't eaten in a couple hours and you're still having to shoot, and people are saying, well, what if we try this? Well, what if we try that? You don't want to sacrifice your client's happiness, getting the actual shot that they want, doing the gig the way that they want, shooting for as long as they want, whatever it is. You don't want to sacrifice your client's happiness just because you didn't pack a Snickers bar or, whatever it is, granola. Bring a snack with you, bring some water, bring a drink, something to keep you going through the gig. Bring a little Powerade or whatever it is you need. But just make sure that you're prepared, you have everything that you need, and you're self-sufficient. If you're showing up to a gig and being like, hey, do you have an extension cord? That can kind of reflect a little bit on you, but that's just, me from my perspective too. That's my experience, just because I've always been ask him, he's got that. Like, people ask me for gaff tape or an extension cord or a dimmer for a 500 watt light, or just like random things like that. And I'll be like, oh yeah, let me go check my car, because I tend to overpack for gigs. They just know that with me. So definitely make sure you're packed. Make sure your gear will not be the reason that the gig goes wrong, and try and make sure there's no reason the gig will go wrong. Do your best and kick butt. I'm sure you're gonna do great. Kinsey, I'm sure you got this. Just go at it with confidence. Do your best. keep that smile on your face, and if you know that there's a problem, the client doesn't necessarily know that there's a problem. So just do your best to keep that attitude up, keep that positivity going, and make it happen. Whew. Alrighty. Getting a little stuffed up here. Alrighty. So next question is Osman Bavik. Do you know of any software for creating nice slideshows? I think the last slideshow I made was probably Windows Movie Maker. I think that was back in 2007. I really don't use slideshows that much. I know that you can make them with like Google Slides, or Microsoft PowerPoint with programs like that, or what is it, Presenter for Apple. I know that you can make them in programs like that. A lot of computers nowadays will have some sort of slideshow software built into them. But there's free softwares out there like Windows Media Player or Windows Movie Maker is what I'm thinking of. And that might not even be free anymore. But there are free softwares out there for making slideshows. Absolutely. I don't have experience with that. So if someone else has experience, I would love for you to pop a link in the chats and tell us about a good slideshow software, because that's just out of my wheelhouse. Let's see, Osman, if I come up with something, if I find something soon, I will let you know. But we're gonna go on to the next question. Coulter R, I am setting up the 3-point lighting system you talked about in your portrait photography video. I'm using my main light in front and 2 strobes behind the model. What power should the strobes be? Okay. See, my experience is much more with constant lighting. Constant lighting and strobes are a little bit different. I like constant lighting because I can use that for photos and for videos, and I always know what the lighting is going to look like even before I snap the shot. With strobes, it's a little bit different. You have to actually set your settings, and some of them have, like lamp options or modeling light options, so you can have a constant light on them that is just a fraction of the power of what it would be. But that's where that conversation about light ratios really comes into play. So what I would do is experiment with your key light. See, just pop a couple shots off and see what power is going to work for that key light. Then once you have your key light dialed in, if you have it in a nice spot, then you can use your ratios. So cut your fill light in half from there, and then your hair light in half from there again. You can mess with those ratios and change around which one is the most powerful light to get some really cool different effects. Like you could make your key light actually your softest light, and your hair light your strongest, and really have some high contrast there. But it's a good way to experiment with different emotions and see how different lighting will affect the feel of your shots. It can be a lot of fun, but there definitely have to be some resources out there for strobes and settings and how to set those strobe settings. Light meters will be very helpful in this situation because you can literally go over with a light meter, pop it off, and have it tell you the power at which you should set your strobe. It's pretty cool. It's there's some cool things that you can do with light meters, but I'm so not familiar with that. I would love to be, and I should probably do some more stuff with that. My experience more so is with using color cards and color checkers. Do I have one over here? I usually have one sitting right there. But color checkers and color cards are little cards that have different colors on them, so you can check and see the saturations of certain colors with different color profiles and picture profiles. This is more so for video. But it also does give you white, gray, and then steps all the way down to pure black, so you can see what your exposure is like. There's some really interesting things that you can do with those, and I like to use those a little bit more than light meters or anything like that. They do different jobs, but I can read the settings on the color checker card and sort of have that work. So Instagram is actually ending in about 30 seconds. It's been great having you all with us. Join us again next week for another live stream on Monday at noon. But in the meantime, if you hop over to UXL on either Facebook or YouTube or Full Coverage Media Group on Facebook, you can join in the video there. Also, twitch.tv/FCMG_producers log. See you soon, Instagram. Peace. Okay, cool. I just had to end that for Instagram. I'm going to share that to IGTV. I already have the title here. That looks good. I got to do this before it goes away. My apologies, everyone. Good enough. Yeah, there we go. Good enough. Post it. Beautiful. Alrighty, so that's done. So, let's get back to this question. Osman Bavik. No, that was the last one. Coulter R. We're talking about 3-point lighting systems. So yeah, definitely do some experimentation with that. You can use some tools like light meters or color checkers to, kind of fine tune that. But with strobes, color checker isn't going to work that well. Definitely use a light meter if you want to do it that way, or just experiment with it. Try those ratios out that we talked about, and look up some other like lighting ratios and how to use strobes, things like that. Those will be your good go-to resources. Okay, so thanks for the question, Coulter. I wish I had more info on that. If anyone has more info, definitely chat in the comments, and that'll show up in the video. I'd love to have more information on strobes. I just tend to stick with constant lighting because they work for both photo and video. But the cost for power when it comes to a strobe, you can get some crazy powerful strobes and do some really, really, really cool stuff with like freezing your subjects because you're using a boom, like really quick strobe like that. You can get strobes that are up to like 1/10,000th of a second, it's just bonkers. Okay, so let's see. We're going to go on to a question from Via D. Are there any good resources to network with other photographers in my area? I mean, how can I find Facebook groups for people only in my neighborhood? So neighborhood might be a little tough, but there are neighborhood-based apps such as like Nextdoor, where you can, join Nextdoor and see who else is in your neighborhood, put up local postings, like hyper-local postings. Or you can even go to places like Craigslist and post locally like that. But, Craigslist has a weird reputation, so maybe that's not the best option. Other things like Production Hub could work, but those are more global. LinkedIn could work well, but that's also a little bit more global. It comes down to, your groups of friends and where they're located, what platforms they use too. So you're saying Facebook in general. How can I find Facebook groups for people only in my neighborhood? Neighborhood might be a little bit too specific, but in your city, definitely. There's a bunch of groups that I used to be a part of when I was living up in Canada, like Northern Ontario photographers and videographers. There was Ontario photographers page. There's the Toronto wedding services page. Like there's tons of things that are specific for a certain city. There's ones that are specific for certain regions. So like in Pennsylvania we have like NEPA. So there would be like NEPA photographers and NEPA rappers, like NEPA artists. Like there would just be like all kinds of different posts based on that area. So you can go into Facebook and search for your local area, like whatever that name is. So like for me, it would be Lehigh Valley. So I can go onto Facebook and search like Lehigh Valley photographers. Bunch of stuff will come up there. I can ask to join those groups. I can be added in. Some of them are going to be public, some are going to be private. And then you can start posting there and start networking with those people locally. But it really does come down to finding those niches that are going to work for you. Sometimes going to a larger scale, like your state or your province, or even if it's a smaller country, your country, that could be your way to really find people in that area. Sometimes those larger groups, like the East Coast photographers page, they might have sections that are dedicated to certain locales. So you can say, okay, East Coast photographers page, but I'm going to look at the posts that are labeled Lehigh Valley, and those will apply to me. So just finding ways to kind of narrow that down, or find groups that are similar to you or located in your area, region, city, state, province, whatever like that. That'll be the way to kind of network with those people. You can also try those apps like Nextdoor and find people that are in your actual neighborhood. But you might have to broaden your search just a little bit in order to find other people in your area. Other good options are actually going out on, going to your local photography store. So like camera stores will have like, okay, we're going to do a seminar on this day of the week, this month, and come out and join us. We're all going to go out into a field and do astrophotography, or we're going to go out with a group of people who are willing to be photographed, and we're going to do portrait photography. Doing those can be fantastic. Great way to network with other people in your area, especially local artists and local producers. It's just finding those groups that actually go out and do things. Right now, it might be a little bit tough, but in general, finding those groups, whether they're active currently or they're just sort of sitting dormant while things are kind of all crazy, that can be a great way to network locally. So yeah, Via D, thank you for the question. Good one right there. Next one is from Alvia Davis. Or you know what? Actually, we're gonna save that one for next time because that's our last about 7 questions on here. So we're gonna be starting at question number 170 with Alvia Davis next week. And again, next week is our last episode of this series. So come join us for some final thoughts on the series. Ask your questions about photography and get those in there while it's still this series. Next series is going to be how to be a better videographer. So we're going to be talking about everything from how to use your cell phones in better ways, to stabilize them with gimbals and whatnot, to how to use a DSLR, or how to use a mirrorless or even a camcorder, and how to get better gigs, how to do bigger projects, how to organize things like that. So we're going to start simple, just like we did with this. We're going to start with like smartphone photography and whatnot, and move our way all the way up to like branding your own business and creating your presence in a local area. Cool. So next week, we're going to start with Alvia's question. We're already a little over an hour into this, and let's get to the actual meat of the conversation. Liz, awesome. Great. I love it. So today we wanted to talk about building a photography brand. That last question was honestly a great segue into this because it kind of applies. Lovely. Okay. So the first topic that I wanted to talk to about when you're getting into building your photography brand, when you're going from being just a photographer that, whenever someone comes to you, or having a couple clients, like just personal photography stuff for people. If you want to build a business surrounding your name, there's a lot of things that you can do. So there's first of all, the question always comes to mind whether you make it your name or you make it just a name in general. So personally, I chose to brand my first photography company as Stay Heavy Studios. It was a little too like genre specific because I was going to be doing all band photography. Like I had chosen to specify, and that worked great until I started getting gigs like family photography. I can't really put that up on a page that has like metal bands and all that stuff up there too. So I decided to kind of split into a more general brand, and that's how Full Coverage Media Group came about. Full Coverage Media Group will do music videos, we'll do real estate stuff, we'll take newborn photos, we'll do maternity shoots, really anything across the board. And that's the more general kind of approach. And I kind of mentioned earlier today that there's two real approaches there. Either the specific approach. Oh, hello, Ashley.
Oh, hello.
Thank you. You're bearing water. Appreciate it. Oh, nice cold water too. Oh, love you too. Ashley's the best. Okay, so there's really 2 approaches there. Either the general approach, where you're going to take every kind of photography job you can get your hands on, be it real estate or weddings or XYZ, or really specifying, becoming a master of portraits, or becoming the the architectural photography person in your area. Like those, there's pros and cons to each of those. But I found that my route was going to be better going the general route, because I get more long-term clients that way, I find, because I can go, oh, hey, you need profile photos. Oh, but you also need, like a commercial for your business. Oh, and you also need product shots for your business. So shoot, I can help with all that stuff. Thank you. Woo, yay. Happy day. Cool. Just got good mail. Yeah, so like I definitely chose to go general. I started more specific than I wanted to. I thought that it was a general approach, but it really wasn't. So that page still has some activity. It has some stuff going on, but I rarely ever post there. But I had the Instagram account, I had the Facebook page, I had the website, all that stuff. So the school of thoughts between naming yourself something general and naming yourself something specific can really depend on your choice of how you want to brand yourself and what kind of work you want to do. So if you want to go the specific route, maybe using your own name is perfect, because the specific route is more about like becoming a master of a certain part of the craft. Like if someone decides that they want to be the premier portrait photographer in the Seattle area, then they would go the specific route. They would probably brand with their own name, because then they're going to have that name recognition associated to their style. Like, oh, Deanna Gilmore, her brand is fantastic for portraits. So whenever someone, mentions portraits, everyone immediately thinks Deanna Gilmore. Just a random name I pulled out of the hat. Like if Liz is phenomenal at architecture stuff, all the real estate agents in the area will know, oh, okay, if I need photos, I talk to Liz, and I go to, Liz She Photography. I apologize if I butchered the pronunciation of that, but it's that kind of concept. Like you'll get more recognized for the style that you do, especially if that style is tied to your name. So it's just a name, and this person does that. That's what they do. They're super solid for that. They're the best person to go to. Meanwhile, I like to do the more general approach. So if you're going to do general services where anyone who has any photography needs can come to you and get their photo taken, whether it's, their kid's birthday party, or they're going to be selling their house, or, maybe they need to, get photos of a racing competition that they're in. So you're going to have to do some crazy stuff for that. Like that kind of approach can be a little bit more like you want to be associated with a brand name, because maybe you aren't the best at doing that sort of thing, but maybe that person's willing to work with you and be like associated with your company. Okay, well now they're not expecting, Deanna Gilmore to show up. They're expecting someone as a representative of Full Coverage Media Group to show up. So by branding myself a little bit more generally, I now have the ability to include more people and include other freelancers in my projects. It allows me to show up to a gig with other people and say, yeah, so I'm Stefan. I'm the head of Full Coverage Media Group, but these are also other people that I work with, and, they're right under the Full Coverage Media Group name with me. It's harder to do that when it's your name of the business, but it's so much easier to specify when it's your name of the business. So you can kind of see my my two ways thinking there. So the first real step, though, after you've decided like which direction you want to go, is going to be starting to build a presence. And that means, having images up online, having posts that go out on a regular basis, or having just a place where you are seen by people. To do so, you're going to want to create profiles, or a website, or a portfolio somewhere online that people can visit. Or maybe even your business is more of a physical business, so like maybe you're going to create flyers and post them around town on places where you can post flyers. Maybe you're going to take out a billboard or something like that and go more of the physical route. I like the internet because you can do a lot of things for free there, but at the same time, you do have to compete with millions and millions and millions of other people. You literally compete with everyone else unless you can hyper specify your areas and your locations and hit some keywords and make sure that you're talking to your demographic, which we're going to talk about too. But building that presence is going to allow you to become top of mind for people. So the more you have, posts out there and more your group of people that are actually more likely to buy from you are seeing you around, like whether you're actually just at a physical function or if you're posting a whole lot and they're seeing your posts, especially your behind the scenes Instagram stuff like we talked about. That's going to be really helpful when it comes to, they get faced with a job. They're like, okay, I have to get, product shots for my stuff. Who am I going to talk to? And immediately they think of you because they just saw a post of yours on Instagram, or they think of you because they walked past one of your flyers. Staying top of mind in your client's mind is super important. So, finding ways to inexpensively reach your user base, be it a Facebook page, be it posting on your personal profile or using Instagram, maybe using LinkedIn, or even, Nextdoor, like we were talking about, like a neighborhood app. Somehow staying top of mind is super important. Creating that presence is what will do that. So another way to do that, another way to really get yourself out there, especially when you're first starting, is to do TFP gigs, which is something that we've talked about before. This is time for print. So the person that's, you're taking photos of, maybe it's you're doing a TFP shoot with a model. So that model shows up to your gig, and in return for their time, you're going to send them photos. So time for photos, time for print, whatever. Maybe you send them prints. Maybe you just send digitals, whatever. By doing gigs like that, you're going to have more material to post. You're going to have the opportunity, like maybe you're out shooting that in a public park. You're going to be seen by people as you're doing that. Maybe they come up to you and say, hey, like, oh, are you doing a photo shoot here? Oh yeah, cool. Here's, have that business card ready. Or maybe it's a digital business card, or you give them your Instagram handle or something like that. There's an opportunity to connect with other people and to advertise your services when you can be seen producing something. So getting out and just doing things for free can often lead to paid gigs, but you just have to be smart about the way that you do it. So, you can't go out to a public place and, get in trouble for doing a gig and have that be good press. Like that's maybe not something you want to be seen or associated with. Here's some other bullets that I have on this. So going to events and taking photos, like maybe there's a concert in your area. You message the venue owner and say, hey, can I go and take photos of this event? I'd post them on Facebook and you can use them, however you want. That could be a great way to even possibly get a free ticket to a show, especially if it's a local show. Speaking to local artists and being like, hey, you're going to be in my town on this night. I would love to take photos for you. That can help get you in the door. But doing that and then posting that stuff online is a great way to advertise your work. Also, when you're at that concert, as long as you're not being obtrusive, you're being respectful of the audience. Maybe the audience sees you doing your work and they see, oh, this guy's got an awesome camera, or this lady's got a sweet setup that she's using. Man, I should really talk to her because I need someone to take photos for me. That's how you can land a gig too. Just being top of mind by having a physical presence in, while doing your work, and also a digital presence. Super, super helpful. Get some more water. Alrighty. Next, ask your friends and family to like and share your content. Also, review and suggest your pages. This is huge. So if you have like a page on Facebook, people can leave reviews on your page, and you always want to ask for 5-star reviews. We talked about this in a previous episode. If you can get your friends and family to hop on there first and leave some reviews for you, that's huge. First of all, because if someone decides, hey, I really don't like this person, I'm going to leave a bad review on their page, it buffers you from that a little bit. You're going to go to, 4.8 instead of like a 2.2 or something like that, right? If you have relatively more 5-star reviews in your account, those bad reviews are going to count for less. Also, though, it gives social proof to people. They come to your website, they see you photographing out in the field and they go, hey, you know, let's talk to this person about getting some photos done. And you suggest to them, hey, go check me out on Instagram or go check out my Facebook page. And they see that, you know, 5 people have given you 5-star reviews. Hey, this person's awesome. Love working with them. You know, my son takes the best photos. Like, even stuff like that is helpful. It shows that people believe in you. It shows that there's other people that have seen you do what you do, and they have confidence in your abilities. So using reviews like that, having people suggest or even share your page is fantastic. I have a friend, Nate Will, who's always jumping in on these streams. It's actually his birthday recently, so happy birthday, Nate. Nate is always jumping in on these live streams. He's always sharing them. He's always like liking them and posting them up. He leaves reviews on every single business that I've done, and he's super helpful as social proof in that fashion. You know, he shows everyone that sees those posts that, you know, I do great work and that he believes in my work and he's willing to vouch for it. So having that social proof, having someone to back you up is massive. It's like having, you know, what is that? References on a resume. It's super important. Okay, so the next thing that you have to work on, you know, you're building your presence. At the same time, you have to be working on your image. So what you actually want the public to see, like what genre of photography are you working in? Are you doing that general approach, or are you specifying to, you know, hey, I'm a real estate photographer. Here's all real estate content. You know, if someone comes to you and says, hey, do you do baby photos? You're going to say, no, I do real estate content. You know, some people might say that that's going to prevent you from some gigs, but at the same time, it solidifies you as that person. Like, whenever that person who, you know, came to you for baby photos, whenever they hear someone talk about, oh, you know, I need to get photos of my house done, they'll think, oh, wait, I know that person that only does real estate because I asked them if they do this stuff and they said no. But I know that they only do that. So let's get in touch with them. That can be a great way to advertise and really work within a genre and perfect it and make yourself stand out among other people that do the same sort of thing. Meanwhile, the general approach is more so about like making yourself hyper useful to every person that you work for. So you don't need to have so many people, so many clients. You can instead have like a more concentrated group of like 3 or 4 clients that you do all of their, you know, photo media needs or something like that. So figuring out what genre you're going to be working in is very important, but also what clientele you're actually going to be advertising to. So if you're doing real estate photography, you're obviously going to be marketing to real estate agents or real estate agencies or people who are selling their homes. There's a couple groups that you can specify there, but the ones that are really going to make you like the biggest bang for your buck will obviously be the real estate agencies. Those have the most listings, those have the most clients, those have a bunch of real estate agents under them that will all have work for you. So like we were talking about episodes ago about bottlenecks, finding a funnel where a bunch of people come to one place to get the same service that you can provide, that's huge. So finding a real estate agency would be paramount. That would be the best, obviously, option. But finding a real estate agent is also another good way to do this. Either way, though, you need to specify what clientele you're looking for, who you're actually going to be selling to. You know, if you're doing wedding photos, you're not going to be selling to single 15-year-olds. You know, that's not your demographic. You're also not going to be selling to married people over 50. That's not your demographic either, unless they're doing, you know, renewal of vows or something like that. Like, figuring out who your demographic is and learning to speak directly to them, finding effective ways to speak only to them is going to be the best way to concentrate your message and concentrate your marketing for the greatest effect. Let's see what the next thing is here. So there's also another thing to ask about when you're figuring out what kind of photographer you want to be is what services you're going to offer. Like, are you going to, I should rephrase that. Whether you're going to offer services or you're going to do something else. So you might offer services, or you might do just sales of art. So you sell prints, or maybe you just do contests, or maybe you do some combination of any of those three. There's a bunch of different ways to make money as a photographer. You could work for a company, you could sell prints, you could do all kinds of stuff. But you have to specify to yourself, like, which ones am I going to actually try for? If you're doing selling prints and doing galleries and applying for contests, that's sort of like, that's a good focus in and of itself. And then if you're doing service-based stuff, it's a little bit easier to focus on just service-based stuff as opposed to the others on that list. The others on that list are more so like, you have to have your permission to share content down. You have to have, image rights like hashed out beforehand. You have to make sure that you can use all the elements that you're using. With client gigs, like service-based gigs, it's a little bit harder to say, hey, can I submit your photos to a contest so that I can make money? Because they just want to go like, well, I paid for that photo, so why don't I just submit it to that contest? Well, they obviously weren't the photographer who took it, but they own the rights, so like, who really gets to use it then? And then you have this whole headache about copyright and usage rights and blah. It's just a whole bunch of, it's a whole goggle, as I've heard some people say. I got friends who say that as like a whole, it's a I can only think of words that have curses in them for some reason when coming up with a nightmare. It's just like a whole, it's chaos. Okay, so yeah, the last thing that I have in image is, you want to tailor your image to your demographic. You want to be able to speak to your demographic and be a solution to their problem. You're going to hear me talk about that in the next sort of chunks. It's always really important to figure out what the problem is and sort of position yourself as the solution to that problem, because then it becomes a really easy 1 to 2, A/B thought process when your clients go, oh crap, I have X problem, like I need photos, and then they go, wait, this person does photos, and then you are the obvious step, the obvious choice, because you're already top of mind. You've been garnering that presence. You've been you've been cultivating your presence. You've been cultivating your image, and you are positioned as the obvious solution to the problem that they have. As soon as someone has that problem, they're going to come to you for a solution. So now we're getting back into the specific versus general approaches. So now that you have your presence and your image kind of figured out, you can really push in these different areas. So if you're going to be doing the specific approach, I wrote here, specifying can make you the authority on a certain style in an area. So you might be the best Toronto wedding photographer. Can't say words apparently. I need some water. So you might brand yourself as the best Toronto wedding photographer. I just did the same thing again. That means that if someone searches for Toronto portrait photographer, they might not find you. But if anyone searches Toronto wedding or photographer, you will be on like the top of that list. You can make your website specific to that. You can make your posts include keywords that are always specific to that. You can really push into that genre as hard as you want, and really become like the authority on that subject. You'll have new clients that seek you out. That's like specifying is more so when people come to you as a dragnet. Like, so you'll have a lot of new clients coming to you on a regular basis. You can optimize your image with keywords I mentioned. So like having blog posts that have those keywords in them, having Instagram posts that have those keywords in them, your bios and descriptions. Your website might have searchable text on there that has those descriptions and those keywords in those descriptions. Just really pointing everyone in the same direction. Like, oh, you need wedding photos? I am the wedding photo person. That can be really, really helpful. And then it allows you to like collaborate with other artists for exposure. So if you're the top wedding photographer in the area, maybe you and the top portrait photographer in the area do a who can take the best portrait or something like that. Like you do like content together that helps both of your channels grow and kind of benefit from that sort of thing. Or if you're the best wedding photographer in the area, maybe you get to know the best wedding makeup artist in the area. And now you start filtering gigs back to each other. So it's like, hey, I've got this photo gig on this day and they need a makeup artist. Are you available? And they go, hey, I've got a makeup gig on this date and they still don't have their photographer figured out. Mind if I send them your info? Those other people will sing your praises. They'll be a dragnet for you to pick up more clients. But because you are that specific, like the person for wedding photos, just as an example, it will allow other people to advertise for you. Because in my situation where I'm just the general photo guy, people will come to me with questions. They'll come to me with, just random stuff about photo stuff, not necessarily coming to me with like, oh, hey, you do any type of photography, so like, let's do this. It's more so I have clients that are more long-term, and whenever they have anything regarding photos, they almost always come to me because they know that it's going to be so much easier. It's going to be, hey, we get to hang out for a while and that's always cool. And then they'll get top quality content delivered to them really quickly. So I have a reputation with my clients. They know that anything under that umbrella, they can come to me, whether it's questions, whether it's actual like gigs. But I'm sort of just the photo guy or the camera guy or the video guy in their heads. It's a very general point. But if you're specifying having, other people in that market, other like the best wedding planner in the area, if they're always talking about you as a wedding photographer, you are golden. Like that's what you're looking for. Meanwhile, I do the thing where I have other clients that just think of me whenever they have anything relating to that topic. So talking about the general approach, some of the pros of the general approach is you can become that one-stop shop for your clients. So they don't need to go out and find a, like they don't need to go out and find a wedding photographer if they're deciding to get married. They can go to me who, I typically would do their commercials for their business, or I would do, like I would help them figure out what's the best camera for them to buy this year. Like they want to upgrade their camera. So I help them figure out some gear. And because of that, they're going to come to me and be like, hey, cameras, come take some photos for us. Great. Awesome. Relationships with long-term clients will be your bread and butter, I mentioned. So having that sort of the reputation where you can do anything when it comes to cameras is great, but it's not gonna make you stand out above people online. It'll make you stand out above people in person. Like your clients will say, oh, well, this guy is really knowledgeable. I trust him. And and that's social proof. They're giving, that commentary to other people and that live review basically to say, this is the person that you want to talk to. I know the internet says X, Y, and Z, but you want to talk to this person because they're local, they're here, they can do that stuff. So general, once you have a client, you can fulfill all their needs and become a full solution to all of their problems. Sometimes this does involve having a client come up to you and say, hey, do you know how to do live streams? And you go, yeah. And then you figure it out real fast. It can be a learning process, but having that one consistent client can be great. It just can be a little bit dangerous at the same time, because if you have that one consistent client and something happens to them, maybe their business goes down, their cash flow gets interrupted, they suffer an injury or something like that, and suddenly you're out of work. So you want to have at least a couple clients. But if people are like, if you're really worried about that in the types of content that you produce, then maybe doing something that's a little bit more specified, or having just a side brand that is specifically one thing that can help you have something that's a little bit more like you're known for that, and that's going to be your consistent gig. But these clients just know that they can come to you for anything. Ashley says, find something you love to do and figure out who specifically needs your service. Focus on your skills and communication, whatever route you choose. If you are that person that can do anything, market yourself that way. Yeah, for sure. I just mean that like trying to stand out in like a photography hashtag is going to be much more difficult than standing out in like a funny baby photography. Like if you go real niche, you can stand out a whole lot online. Meanwhile, if people in your local like word of mouth area, if they know you as the photo person, then you'll be known to that entire group as the photo person. You'll get those gigs that way. So there's like, it's kind of the same thing, but it's just, you can take a more general approach and be local word of mouth, or you can hyper specify and be a little bit larger local, like, your region or maybe, all of the Lehigh Valley or something like that, and be the person for this type of service. I think that's easier to stand out digitally like that. In person, you can obviously do the same thing. But just being a general, solution to photo problems when it comes to your local network, I think is a great approach. And it worked really well for me. So, let's see here. So, any other points on the general? Yeah. Okay. Companies with varied needs can be a great way to get steady work or even get new clients through that larger company. So like I talked about, creating bottlenecks and creating funnels so that you have a client that has tons of potential clients for you coming to them already, like going to a studio and you do music videos for bands. If you go to work at a studio and you do some work for them, then all of a sudden you have a place where there's already more clients coming in. Or, if you're a wedding photographer, like we've been talking about, maybe you get in real tight with a wedding planner and they suggest you every single time. They're going to filter jobs your way. They're going to be that big drag net so that they catch a whole bunch of clients coming in, and the people who actually decide to go with them, then they might take their advice and go with you as well. You get sort of packaged in with other people. When I do work with PBS, there's often times where clients will be like, yeah, you know what? I just need some photos and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well here, let me do some photos for you quick because I have that equipment. Meanwhile, PBS has like big video cameras and stuff like that. They don't really have like, taking photos cameras. So like leveraging yourself within a larger market like that, like I get brought in as a camera operator, but sometimes they bring me in for equipment. Sometimes they bring me in to do directing, or sometimes they bring me in to do editing. Like there's different responsibilities that I can fill within that larger workspace. But because I'm not going there as like, this is my job and now I'm hired as only this, I get to be a little bit more general with them, which is kind of cool. All right. And the last final point, the real big point from this entire thing is figure out the problem and become the solution. So finding out what problem people are going to be faced with and like positioning yourself as the solution to that is going to be your best bet here. When you're branding yourself as a photographer or a company, you really want to be a solution to something. So if you're not really solving a problem, then it's not going to be as necessary for people to come to you right away. You're going to have to work a whole lot harder to show people that, hey, I am really, really good at what I do. Maybe you'd want to come to me just because I'm the best or something like that. Like it's hard to prove that without having that general clientele that comes in through your door and can get those gigs moving. So if you can solve that problem for people, you're going to be in demand. Business is all about filling a need and doing it in a way that is less expensive or easier than a client learning to do it themselves or for a client to buy the equipment. So it's this fine line between making enough money that you can sustain yourself and not charging too much that clients go, well, shoot, I can do that myself. I'll just buy my own camera or buy my own video thing, or you know what, I have my own camera, so I'm just going to do it myself. But, you know, you have to make the value of your work that much more valuable so that someone is actually going to come to you and pay you for it instead of trying to just figure it out themselves. And if you can figure out that problem, you can market yourself as that solution, and you're really going to be able to bring in some clientele that way. So that's really everything that I wanted to talk to you about this week. We're going to have more next week, and then that's going to be it for a little bit. But we will be coming back with more live streams. We're going to be doing a series on how to be a better videographer. So we're going to be getting into video and, video production, television production, and even film production. So we're going to have some cool stuff there. We're going to talk about some sweet equipment, and I'm really excited to show you that stuff because that's more my wheelhouse. I definitely started as a photographer, and I moved more into videography, filmmaking, and media production in that sort of suite. So I'm excited to chat with you about that. This has been great. Next week we'll be talking about innovating as a photographer and how to do some really cool stuff, like how to get on that bleeding edge of photography and stay ahead of everyone else and really stand out, which is one of the hardest things to do these days. Like we were just talking about marketing yourself online. It's all about standing out. So, join us again next week. We're going to be back on Monday at noon with innovating as a photographer. So that should be a really fun one. As always, thank you for joining us. It's always been, it's always great doing these live streams and having people involved and answering questions and asking questions and sharing their experiences. If you want to ask me anything personally, you can get in touch with me at FCMG_stay on Twitter and on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitch, all that stuff. So find me there. I do game streams on Twitch. I do, random adventures on Twitch. I do gear reviews on YouTube, Full Coverage Media Group. I would love to see you all there. And let's feel free to continue the conversation there. Ask me anything, anytime on any of those channels, and I'll gladly send you back a message as soon as I can. So I'm going to leave you on that end stream. And as always, have a good one, and peace, everybody.